In the name of God, hello everybody. This is session 5 of your syntax lesson. In this session, I want to talk about the phrase structure. Okay, as you know, each sentence consists of some phrase structure. So in this session, I want to talk about the structure of these kind of, phrases. So, first, syntactic structure. What is syntactic structure in each sentence? Consider the example number 1 with its tree diagram representation in 1b. You see here, 1a, Poirot will abandon the investigation. This is a kind of English example. You see here, this is a kind of tree diagram. You see here, it's a kind of sentence. In the the above node of the tree is sentence. Then it consists of NP, the subject, noun, Poirot, the auxiliary, will, and the VP, which consists of verb, abandon, and the NP, the object, determiner, noun, the investigation. You see here, this is the tree diagram representation of sentence number 1a. First, we can think of the vertical relation. You see here, between the elements in a tree. We can use the term dominance to characterize such relations. So if we want to talk about the vertical relation in this tree diagram, we can use dominance term. What is dominance? Node A, for example, S here, dominates node B, for example here NP, if and only if A is higher up in the tree than B, and if we can trace a line from A to B going only downward. You see here in this tree diagram, for example, S dominates, for example, NP, dominates auxiliary, dominates VP. You see here, because in this tree sentence is higher up in the tree than, for example, NP, and if we can trace a line from sentence to NP going downward, you see here, we go downward. You see, so this is the term of dominance. You see here, this is the term of dominance. For example, in this, again, you see the tree diagram. As I said, sentence dominance, for example, NP, auxiliary, or VP, or for example, VP dominance verb and NP. You see here, because the VP is higher up in the tree diagram, and if we can trace a line from VP to V, we go downward. You see here, this is a kind of dominance. Again here, for example, NP dominates N. So this is the term dominance, which is the vertical relation. In this, for example, again in this tree diagram, you see here, for example, the VP cannot dominate, for example, N, Poirot, because we cannot we cannot trace a line from VP to N. You see here, so we said that VP cannot dominate noun, but VP can dominate verb, or can dominate NP here. So this is the term dominance, which is vertical relation in the tree diagram. The other term in this part, we look at the vertical relation, but we can also look at in the tree diagram from a horizontal perspective and describe the left-right ordering of constituent in terms of precedence. What is precedence? Node A precedes node B if and only if A is to the left of B and neither A dominates B nor B dominates A. This is the definition of precedence, which is the relation of the horizontal perspective. For example, look at the tree diagram, the previous tree. Auxiliary, look at the auxiliary and VP. Okay, the auxiliary precedes VP, is in the left side of the VP, so we call this precedence. The auxiliary precede the VP, or the NP here precede, for example, the auxiliary. This is the horizontal relation and the left to right ordering of constituents. You see here, auxiliary, for example, precedes VP, but VP does not precede auxiliary because VP is to the right of auxiliary. So this is two kind of relations, two terms related to relationship. The first one is dominance, which is the relation about the vertical, it's a kind of vertical relation, dominance, and the other one is precedence, which is the relation in the horizontal perspective, left to right, I mean. So these, you know, you should know these two terms about the relations in the tree diagram. So using terminology from traditional grammar, we shall say that the verb governs the object. This is another term, government. You see here? And more generally, that the head of a phrase governs the complement. So in each phrase, the head of the phrase governs the complement. The element which governs is called governor. We call the head governor, and the element that is governed is called the governee. We call the complement governee. So this is the definition. What is government? A governs B if first A is a governor, and second, A and B are sisters. Governors are heads. For example, again in the tree diagram, the verb abandon is the head of the VP, and it governs the direct object Poirot. You see here, again look at the tree diagram. You see here, this is the verb, our verb abandon, which is the head of the VP. So we call it governor. The governor, I mean, governs the complement, the NP, I mean the investigation. So you see here, both of them are sisters, but the verb is the head of the VP, and we call it governor, and we call the complement governee. So the head, governs the complement NP here. So this is relation of government. So we have three kind of terms in the tree diagram. The first one is dominance, the second one is precedence, and the third one is government. As you see here, for example, the verb governs, the complement. So this is a kind of relationship between tree diagram. So we talked about three kind of relations in each tree diagram. So in this part, I want to talk about the structure of phrases. So we want step by step, one by one, talk about each phrases. For example, verb phrase, noun phrase, adjective phrase, and prepositional phrase. The first one is the verb phrase. You see here, what is the structure of each verb phrase? Layered VPs. You see here we have a kind of example sentence here. For example, Miss Marple will read the letters in the garden shed this afternoon. You see here, this is a kind of sentence. This sentence consists of the subject, the NP, Miss Marple, the auxiliary will, and the VP. VP itself consists of the head, verb, read, and some other complements. The letters, first the letters, then in the garden shed, which is prepositional phrase, and then this afternoon again is a kind of NP. So this VP consists of the head, the verb, and three other dependent. The first one, the NP, the letters. The second one, the PP, in the garden shed. And the third one, again, the NP, this afternoon. We call this kind of structure as a flat structure. You see here, they are flat, okay, near each other. So this is a flat structure. But projection of V that are dominated by more comprehensive projection of V are called intermediate projection of V. We can show this tree diagram not just by as a kind of flat structure, but layered structure, hierarchical structure. You see here again that example, the same example. Miss Marple will read the letters in the garden shed this afternoon. You see here, First we have subject, Miss Marple, then auxiliary will, then VP. Again, you see here, this is a VP. VP consists of the head verb, read, which first combine with the complement the letters, and then we have a first layered V1 bar. We call it V1 bar. Then this V1 bar, combine with another PP in the garden shed, then produce the second V1 bar, and at last the V1 bar combine with this afternoon, and we compose the kind of VP. So this is not a flat structure, okay? This is a kind of layered or hierarchical structure. You see again the previous tree diagram, we call it flat structure because all of the dependent of the verb, for example NP, PP, NP, these are besides each other. You see, this is a kind of flat structure. But if we show it in the layered structure, this is not a flat structure, this is layered, hierarchical, because first verb compose with NP, produce a kind of combine with MP and produce a V1 bar. Then this V1 bar in the second layer combine with PP, produce a kind of compose the kind of second layer VP, you see here, and then you see again, and again you see here the V1 bar combined with the last NP in the third step, and we produce a kind of VP. So we call it layered, not flat structure. You see here, we call it layered structure. So this is the VP. We have a flat structure and layered structure, as you see in the structure. So the other example in the VP, for example, all read the letters in the garden shed this afternoon. We add a kind of another element, all here. We put the all in the specifier. We call it specifier. The specifier dominated by VP, you see here, is presented as a spec VP. We call it a spec VP. A spec VP combined with V1 bar to form the highest V projection, the maximal projection VP. So as you see here, again, this is a kind of layered structure. First, the first step, the verb read, the head, combined with the NP, the letters, produce V1 bar. In the second step, V1 bar combined with the PP in the garden shed, produce V1 bar. In the third layer, again, this V1 bar combined with this afternoon produce another V1 bar, and at last V1 bar combined with a spec, with all, to produce the maximal projection VP. We call it verb phrase. This is the the topmost of the VP structure, so we call it maximal projection or VP. So this is the structure of layered VP in English and in other languages. So you see here, this is in English, you see the V, the head, combined with another element to produce V1 bar, and at last V1 bar combined with a spec, a specifier, to produce the maximal projection VP, as you see here in this example. And you see here again, this is the same structure of the tree diagram. VP, first V, the head, combined with another element to produce V1 bar, then again V1 bar, and at last combined with a spec, a specifier, to produce VP, the maximal projection. This is the structure of the VP. there are some parametric variation and in word order. You know, we have a universal grammar and we have parametric, the variation, which shows the differences between languages. The projection schema for VP developed so far is based just on English example. You know, it's too rigid to apply universally. We have already seen that the word order, for example, in Japanese differs from, for example, in English. If in English we put complement at the left side of the verb, it means that first we put the verb then the complement. In Japanese we put first the complement then the verb. So the word order in languages are different from each other. So we can show the tree diagram like this. We have two lines. Maybe in some languages like English the complement is after the verb, and in some other languages they are precede the verb. You see here, before the verb. So this is a kind of universal grammar which we can use it for English and for Japanese. You see here, so this is a kind of universal. So we have parametric variation in languages. For example, in the English, in word order, we first put the verb then complement, but in Japanese we first put the complement then the verb. So we call we can draw the picture, the tree diagram of the universal grammar like this. So it can show each languages, for example, the English language and the Japanese language. So this shows the differences between languages. So this is the noun phrase, okay? Excuse me, this is the verb phrase. We talked about the verb phrase. In the second part, the second step, we talk about noun phrases. Noun phrases, like verb phrases, may have flat structure or layered structure. Look at the example, the investigation of the corpse after lunch. You see here? So this is the tree diagram of this sentence. NP, determiner, the, and the head investigation, then the PP of the corpse, again the PP after lunch. You see here, we call it flat structure. All of the elements are beside each other. You see here, we call it flat structure. But again, like VP, we can have a kind of layered structure. You see here, first of all, the head, the investigation, combined with first PP on the corpse and produce N1 bar. Then this N1 bar combined with after lunch, another PP, to produce another N1 bar. And at last, this N1 bar combined with a specifier, the D, then produce the maximal projection NP. So we call it layered structure, not flat structure. As you see here, the lowest N1 bar projection dominates N, the head of the phrase, and its complement, and adjunct again combined with N1 bar to produce another N1 bar. This after lunch combined with N1 bar to produce another N1 bar. You see here, then the specifier combined with this N1 bar to produce the maximal projection NP. So we call it layered structure, not flat structure. So this is again like verb phrase. So noun phrase is like verb phrase, can have a layered structure. Again, there are some parametric variation in languages. In English, for example, the head noun precedes its complement and adjunct, as you see here. You see here, the head, the noun, precede the complement and the adjunct of the corpse and after lunch. This is the word order of English. But again, this is not a universal property. In order to allow for cross-linguistic variation in word order, we could adopt a very general phrase structure schema along the lines of, for example, like this one. For like VP, we can produce a kind of phrase structure rules again for NP. So we have NP, which composed of a specifier n1 bar. This n1 bar again composed of n1 bar xp. It means any, phrase, any pp, np, or other phrases. Then at last, n1 bar consists of the head n and then xp. So this is the universal property. This shows the universal property of each languages, because we may change the order of these elements, for example in English or Japanese or Persian or Arabic or other languages. So this is again the differences between languages, which shows the variation between languages. So thank you for your attention. So in this session, we talk about the phrase structure rules. Again, we talk about the tree diagram. First of all, we explain three terms: the dominance, the precedence, and the government. You should know these three terms. Then one by one we talk about the phrases. The verb phrases. As you see, we can have a flat structure in verb phrase, and we can have a layered structure, as you see. Then the noun phrase, as you see here, again we can have a flat structure, and we can have a layered structure like this. And at last, I talk about the variation between languages. As you know, for example, in English language and Japanese language, there are some differences between the word order, so we can change the place of these elements in some languages. So this is the difference between languages, the parametric variation between languages. Thank you for your attention, and that's enough for today, and goodbye.